What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you're doing well today. And today I'm going to be taking you a few laps, hopefully, and some hopefully not too terrible to watch laps of what I believe is the hardest MXGP track we've ever had in the game, the hardest sand track we've ever had in the game, and the track that I've never had a track that's made me feel as mid at MX Bikes as this track does right here. For those of you that have been living under a rock, this track is the 2023 MXGP of Lommel, or the GP of Flanders, whichever one you want to refer to it as. And it was an interesting track. I would go out and say, if you haven't watched back the live stream from last night, which was when the actual race was held, I would recommend giving this a cheeky little pause and going and watching the races through, and just seeing kind of what it all entailed from start to finish. And everything that I'm going to say throughout the course of this video is from the perspective of me who won the overall. There you go, there's a little spoiler, a little early on. So it's not a case of just had a terrible round, so then had a little bit of a biased opinion towards how the track rode and felt. So if it's a skill issue for the person that won the overall, then it's a skill issue for everyone at the end of the day, I guess. But I want to just go through things, because you guys know I love sand. I love sand tracks in this game so much. One of my most favourite things to do is just hop on and get a flow going. Absolutely loved Arnhem this year, which was the GP of the Netherlands. Was a bit hit and miss with Sardinia, to be fair, but I wasn't here for that round, so I barely put any time into it. But last year's Sardinia, I really enjoyed. Last year's Lommel, really enjoyed as well. So I was a little bit shocked when I came to trying to learn this one, and kind of not going as well as I thought it would. Now, before I kind of get into all the ins and outs as well, I understand the direction that kind of went into this track, because Lommel is a brutal track. It's meant to be brutal. So they've tried replicating that to the best of their abilities in game. What ends up happening, however, is there is a point where realism meets terrible game physics, and the two don't kind of like each other. So what I found with this track is, if you haven't played it yet, give it a go. Although if you're someone who's not kind of up for paying for tracks anyway, maybe give it this one a miss, just because it's a track that I don't see many people going back to time and time again. And that's just because of how difficult it is. So there's a few parts of this track that I really enjoy. There's so basically from that corner that I just hit all the way through this section right here, we then end up jumping into this middle rut here, and you can rail this one and get a good jump out, and then you can jump your way through this section and rail this inside rut. This all has like a nice good flow. It's like cohesive. It feels like you can link one corner into the next. And then there's another half of the track where it feels like you're kind of always locked into your one line. And when I imagine sand tracks, or I envisage them and how fun they are to play, I envisage a track where you have the freedom to move around wherever you want to go. Now, a lot of the time on sands, there'll be one main line, which will usually be like inside, drifting out wide to carry as much momentum as possible, which I don't mind. I'm okay with that. And there's a few corners on this track that do exactly that. However, I think the issue with this track is where in this game soil is not soft. It is just a hard object that you are riding across the top of. You can't ride through it. It's not like you can move the dirt that's underneath you at all, which is a game limitation, I suppose. But where on these straights, instead of just having the rollers, we've also got, can you see we've got grooves between the rollers as well? So instead of the rollers just being up and down, we've also got ruts going through them. What happens is, obviously you're going very fast on the sand track anyway, so it's hard to work out where you're going. If you get a tiny bit offline, your front end's going to knife and kick you out. If you get a tiny bit offline, your back end's going to go and kick you out, which a lot of time can be just put it down to skill. Don't get offline, that's the easy solution. But what that actually happens is it ends up being a little bit like slot car racing, because once you are in your one line, you then don't really have the freedom to move around and search for the smooth lines, if that makes sense. And one thing that I found, which is a combination of a couple of things actually, where the track is so difficult, the skill gap between the top of the pro class and the bottom of the pro class was huge. I think the difference in lap times for qualifying was 10 seconds between first and 35th place, which is nuts. Something that I don't really think should be happening, but is the position that we are put in, unfortunately, where we're now on region lock, where there's like half of the competition in each series, so kind of sucks. I would like it to go back so we can have all of the fastest people in the game competing against each other at any given time. but that is just my one opinion there. So what happens is, let's say you get to lappers. I saw a lot of complaints about lappers yesterday. Not even just from myself. I had some poor get-togethers with some lappers, but other people at the top, like Cam and Hackon as well, running into people. I can't think of any other examples off the top of my head, but it's kind of, there's multiple reasons for why the lappers were especially bad on this track. First one being obviously the skill gap between the top and the bottom being so huge. The riders either don't know what the fastest line is, or they don't know how to get out of the fastest line to do something different, or they just haven't got enough race IQ, maybe they haven't done enough races yet. Because when you get to the end of the season, less and less people sign up, so it means people that were on the cusp of making it in before now do make it in. So that's one reason. And the other reason, I think, is because of how locked into your lines you are on this track. You can't just suddenly like dive out of a rut to make room for a leader coming through, and alternatively, if you are a leader, and I feel like for the most part there was one predominant fast line around most of this track, if you need to get out of that line to try and pass a lapper, you're not just slowing that one corner or that one jump. That then affects your momentum around the next like 2, 3, 4 turns. So it ends up being a massive chunk of time that you end up losing. And I was just in Moto 1, I had to come back from behind because I got an awful start. I'm not going to go through the start too much again. It's just race IQ in the first couple of corners. People should just use their brakes a bit more and try and play it safe. That's a topic for another day. But yeah, I had to come back, and I was keeping an eye on the time to the leaders all the time, and I think Cam led like 99.9% of that race, and he won it at the end anyway. But our gap was never really changing, but the only time it would change, it would differ by like 1 or 2 seconds a lap, but that was never from a crash. That was just from hitting like one extra bump that would then ruin your momentum for the whole of the next straight. So what I think is, I saw the vision on this track, I saw what the goal was, and I think it just didn't quite work out. I've had to re-download this track for this video, because as soon as that stream was done, I removed it from my game because I had no desire to play it again. And I think it's just a case of a little bit too rough. Probably weird coming from my lips, me saying that, because I'm always an advocate of rougher and slower tracks. But there's a limit, you know. I feel like a lot of points on this track, we're just kind of bouncing up in the air, we're not moving forwards at all. If anybody wants to watch something very, very painful, go and watch back Reaper's live stream from last night and watch a 250 trying to get around that. This isn't, obviously, I'm not digging at Reaper directly here saying that he's painful to watch. I'm saying that riding this track on a 250 looked incredibly painful to watch. I don't really feel like they had enough momentum or speed to get any sort of flow going anywhere. So I feel like that needs to be looked at a little bit. I don't know the number of people that test these. Obviously, in the preview laps that we see that Cupcake commentates over, I believe JV is the one doing the actual riding and doing the footage. So I'm not sure if JV is a lone man when it comes to testing these. However, I do know he rides a 450, so I don't know how much 250 work went into this, but that looks like a painful experience. So amongst all of my complaining last night, which there was a lot of it, I just am very grateful that we have bikes that are powerful enough to be able to double and triple some of these bumps, because otherwise it would have been even more miserable than it already was. And I think it just comes down to how big some of the bumps are. If they was a little bit more rolled up, like this, look at this bump right here, literally about to eat you over the bars, and no one's going to go over that bump by choice. So again, it just limits parts of the track that you can and can't ride on. So that's just for future. I feel like Arnhem was a good mix of rough. I think Lommel should have maybe been like the tiniest bit rougher than Arnhem, and I think everyone would have been absolutely fine, absolutely happy. Like again, sections like this, the roughness is really, really good. You can jump out of a corner, you can skip 2 or 3 bumps through the rhythm section, nice smooth flowy inside line again, find a low line to jump up onto this, you can step down, keep the rhythm going, and then it's when we get to about this point where it starts getting a little bit over the top. More so on this straight right here. I've not found a smooth line around this straight once yet. It's like pick a line, pin it, and hope your back wheel gets as much grip as possible and traction as possible. But I feel like JV is a man who is more than happy to take like criticisms on board. And in amongst all of the pain and suffering in the races last night, there were some high points. I mean, one of the high points for me was being able to sit and talk to Charlie in a Discord call for the entirety of Moto 2, because in Moto 1, I'd already got myself demonetised from all the swearing and stuff. So, I mean, that's a positive. And a lot of the time, if people go back and watch these streams and they see, like, us racers complaining about track or other riders or bikes, etc., you have to understand that there's quite a lot of I'd say, emotion that goes behind it. Like, you are invested in trying to do well on these tracks because it's something that you care about. I like doing well. I hate doing poorly in games. It's just I don't have fun when I'm doing bad. I think that's quite apparent. So yeah, don't take it to heart too much. Wait for an after the fact comment on these tracks, because right now, I mean, I'm getting around the track okay. These are my first laps of the day. I'm not going anywhere near as fast as we were going in the races. I mean, I think there was one point in the motos where we was just clicking off like consistent 57s or so. My fastest lap in Moto 1 was a 56, although I didn't check it in Moto 2. And in qualifying, I ended up third place, I think, where I feel like I left a lot on the table as well. I definitely could have qualified another second, maybe second and a half faster. Just couldn't put a clean lap together. That's just for the track, and I feel like I've slept on it now, and the track is just a very difficult and very humbling track. And there's a couple of things I would tweak if we was to be able to redo it. But I'd say 50% of the track I quite enjoy. 50% of the track I think is just a little bit too excessive for how the game works and how the gameplay feels, how the bikes handle the rough stuff. Overall, I don't think it's a terrible job by any means. Definitely nowhere near as bad as we was making it out to be yesterday. It's one of them things where, I mean, for EU specifically, again, you've got 30-40 minutes to get your practice on, then you're straight into qualifying, then you're straight into races. So for tracks like this, it is a long track. You know, it's a 2-minute long lap time, so it's a lot of track to remember. And then where there are so many bumps and different grooves here, there, and everywhere, to be able to map the track out in your head in such a short amount of time is not an easy thing to do. So, you know, it is what it is. But if you would like your, if you would like it to be done with no lube, download this track. If you don't want it to be done with no lube and you want a nice, easy experience, don't download this track. Very, very easy there, short and sweet. But yes, it's one of them. I've never felt so mediocre at the game in my entire life. The only thing that was refreshing is seeing that everybody else was also being made to feel very mediocre, because everybody was struggling. There was lots of crashes. Again, laps were an absolute nightmare, and I think part of that is because of how the track's built, part of that is skill issues, and part of that is because of the end of the season. But I'd be interested to know your guys' thoughts, because there's lots of different opinions at the moment, and I think it depends on what point of the game you're in. Obviously, the people that just play the game very casually and like the, I guess, ultra difficult part of the game would really, really enjoy this. I think the competitive side, don't hate it, but it's definitely a difficult track to go fast on, which is kind of what we want to do in Pro. I think just to get around the track, if you don't care about your lap times, it's probably not the most difficult thing in the world to do. But then when you're thrown into the pits, let's say, with all the other top boys in EU, or if you're doing the NA series, like vice versa, it's very, very difficult to try and remain cool, and you have to just be so precise everywhere. Overall, I think it looks very, very nice. That's something that I keep seeing time and time again this year, is how good the tracks look. I just think in terms of feel and flow, this one just missed the mark for me. So hopefully, whatever sand track we get next, I'm guessing it would be Southwick, but then that's Stone Riders making that, not JV, so it will be a completely different kind of flow anyway. We shall see. We'll go back to enjoying blitzing our sand. If I was to load up the game again tomorrow and someone said, yo, go ride some sand for me, it probably wouldn't be this one. I'd probably go back to Arnhem. It just feels like it flows a lot more, and you can link all the corners together. So that's just personal opinion. Again, let me know what you think, if you enjoy the track, if you're changing things, if you think it's a little bit too over the top. I think one thing that's kind of limiting us at the moment is just the game. You know, the game physics do need a rework at some point to be able to handle these really, really rough tracks, or maybe even the bikes getting updated again at some point. But yeah, the bikes are in the healthiest place they've ever been. They seem very, very capable on the other 99.9% of the tracks out there. I just really struggled around here, and again, that's from an overall winner's perspective. It was super close. It was me on 42 points, Hakon on 42 points, Tyler and Cam were both on 41 points. So yeah, very, I mean, the racing was close, I guess. There wasn't too much in the ways of battles. A lot of it was just quite start dependent. But yeah, it was one of the races of all time, which I think I said was going to be the case even before going into Moto 1. So yeah, go and check the live stream out if you haven't seen it yet. And again, if you are someone that doesn't like seeing people complain about other people or the track or the game, then don't watch it. If you do want to see me having a little rage whilst also doing pretty decent, then go and watch it. Those are the very, very two simple simple solutions there. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for watching, boys. Don't Actually, no, don't go and subject yourselves to this. You'll regret it. I promise you, you will. But yeah, that'll do it for me. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you know all that good stuff. Catch you guys next time. Peace.
I'm sacrificing my life, I'm sacrificing my mind, I'm sacrificing my sanity, but most importantly, I'm sacrificing my time. Boy, I feel fine, I feel like I am a king. Honestly, I can't complain. Even with faith that's the size of a grain of some salt, I will still move a mountain and do what I want. I got salt.